Hi guys! So last week in music we talked about music notes that kind of look like this. We talked about whole notes, which we learned are worth 4 beats. We talked about half notes, which we talked about are 2 beats. And we talked about quarter notes, which we learned are 1 beat, which means that quarter notes would just be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Because music is always broken up, well, usually broken up into 4 beat chunks. So today we're going to learn about what happens when you make a music note even shorter than a beat. So this is a quarter note and we know that it is worth 1 beat. This is called an eighth note. If you look at an eighth note compared to a quarter note, you'll see that they look very similar. However, an eighth note has what's called a flag coming off of it. That little curly thing is a flag. So, what an eighth note is it's a half of a beat, which might sound kind of funky. But if a quarter note is 1, 2, 3, 4, an eighth note, we can fit 2 beats into every single number. So we can go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So it's like a half of a beat. Kind of confusing, I know, but if you were to put it into a piece of music and you listen to it, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. In those 4 numbers, I was able to get in 8 counts if you counted with me. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. I broke up that 4 beat measure into 8 different little pieces, little chunks. So this is an eighth note. And an eighth note also looks like this. You might be thinking, okay, well this looks completely different. It's actually not. All this is this is 2 eighth notes. When you have 2 eighth notes on a page directly next to each other, a lot of composers, the people that write music, they like to take the little flag and just combine it to the note next to it. So that way they kind of connect together because they're right next to each other, so they might as well. So we've got quarter note, eighth notes. The final thing that we will learn today is called a 16th note. This is actually 4 16th notes, but you get the gist. So if I look at eighth notes versus 16th notes, what difference do you see? Other than the number of notes here, because that doesn't really matter, what do you see different in the shape here? The eighth notes actually have 2 flags, 2 little bars that connect them together. While the 16th note, I hope I said that right. The 16th note has 2 little bars that connects it right here, while the eighth note only has 1. So if it was a note that looked like this, you would see another little flag drawn right here. So a 16th note has 2 bars instead of 1, or 2 flags instead of 1. And a 16th note is worth a quarter of a beat, which is going to be a little bit confusing because a quarter note is worth 1 beat and a 16th note is worth a quarter of a beat. I know, kind of confusing. But if we think back to the fact that a quarter note is worth a quarter of a measure, so it's worth 1 beat because there's 4 beats in a measure, so it's just one of those beats. A 16th note is just a quarter of a quarter note. It's kind of like quarterception, right? So a 16th note, you can fit 4 little sounds into a single quarter note. So if a quarter note is 1, 2, 3, 4, and an eighth note is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. This is kind of weird, but the way we say 16th notes is 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and if you see, each one of those numbers gets 4 little sounds. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and Another way I like to say that is I like to call it pepperonis. These are my pepperoni notes. So I go pepperoni, 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 pepperoni. So a 16th note is a quarter of a beat. All right, 16th notes, eighth notes, and quarter notes are huge in our drumming because we can't do half notes and whole notes in drumming. So when we do our percussion or our body percussion, if you are in 3rd grade, you're gonna see a lot of those 16th notes, 8th notes, and quarter notes. So let's move on to our drumming and get started with that. See you guys there.